name is Dr. Daniel Fox, and I'm a licensed psychologist in the state of Texas and an expert in the area of personality disorders. And as I've been making videos in my channel, a lot of people have been writing me about how to find a therapist. And I thought, well, let me make a quick short video that might be able to help some of these folks find a therapist that you might like, that might be able to help you in different areas maybe that you can explore. Okay, so what we'll do is first, well, how do you find a therapist? Okay, so how do you find one? Well, I like to discourage folks from just going to their insurance company and just kind of going through and saying, okay, well, that sounds like a good name. I get that sometimes, like people will call and they'll want to work with me and they'll say, well, Fox sounds like a cool name, and it sounds like Michael J. Fox, and so I thought, I want to see if you were a good guy. I'm like, well, that's always nice that they call, but that I don't think that's an effective way to find a therapist who can help you, because there's all different kinds of therapists out there who have different skills, and depending on what issues. Now my channel is related to personality disorders, so we want to try to find folks that can help who understand personality disorders. So please explore who these individuals are. A lot of therapists that I know, they have a website or they have a Facebook page, a professional Facebook page, and so you can learn about them, kind of get an idea if what they're like, about what some of their views are, not their personal views, but certainly their professional views, and how they present themselves is important as well. Ask your friends or colleagues if they know anyone, or if they like anybody, or if they've heard of anybody that might be good. You can also, and I think this is one of my suggestions that I give to folks the most, is if there's a university in your area and they have a psychology department, particularly if they have like a graduate psychology department. This can be in counseling or clinical psychology, marriage and family, or social work, whatever it may be, is that you can call and ask for recommendations of people that are trained in the program and who may specialize in personality disorders or related to other concerns that you have as well. Okay, so, and a lot of times, a lot of those schools, they'll have clinics, and those clinics function on a sliding scale. I know I got my master's degree at Florida State, and at Florida State, we did have a clinic, and it was sometimes like $5 to see somebody. Now this was a long time ago, so it might be $20. I don't know. But you could call and find that out. Find out if your employer has an EAP program. Find out what the rules are for that. A lot of EAP programs have initial free sessions. Okay, and so that may be another way to go as well. There's online therapy. Okay, and now research found that online therapy is useful. Okay, now in treating mental health and medical illnesses as well, with psychiatric issues and concerns. Online therapy, a lot of the rules, I know here in Texas, I can't do online therapy outside of the state of Texas because I'm licensed in the state of Texas. So typically, even online therapy, you are not supposed to, at least in Texas. This is what we're told, is that you can't do therapy for individuals in Wisconsin or that aren't living in the state of Texas. Okay, so that's just Texas, for example. I don't know whatever state you're in, but you may want to explore that as well. Online therapy may be effective for you. And now, if it's a child, if it's for your son or daughter, you may want to consider family therapy as well. I am a firm believer in a family systems approach, and that is that a lot of times when we talk about the power in the system, that the child tends to be one of the weakest members, power-wise, in the family system. So to take just that child to the provider, drop them off and say, okay, I'll be back in 50 minutes, fix him or her, whatever. What happens is they go back to that environment, whether it's school, to home, or both. So it's important. Family therapy can help change that system and can really help that child to develop quicker, that sometimes those issues can have greater control, and it also can teach a family how to support one another and move through that. Now, what if it's a partner? A lot of folks call me about partners, that their partner has borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, other types of issues, and my recommendation is typically about couples therapy. Is both of you going in, again, working on the dynamic, the relationship dynamic, and if personality components or disorder is a part of that relational dynamic, it's working on that while also working on the issues of the personality disorder. Okay? So that could be how to find one. Well, Now, what about some questions? What if you do find someone? Well, let me try to give you some questions that you could ask him or her to find out a little bit about them. Okay. Now, a lot of this stuff you might be able to find on their website. Hey, people ask me about me before I meet with them. How long have you been in practice? Are you licensed? That's a good one. Do you specialize in the areas you're struggling with, such as with borderline personality disorder? Have you treated folks with borderline personality disorder? And I think if you ask them what their specialty is and they're a little, rebuffed by it or put off, I think you may want to consider, going to someone else. People ask me, well, do you specialize in depression? I said, well, I mean, it's a component of borderline personality disorder, but I say that I specialize in personality disorders. And then we'll usually have a conversation about that. And sometimes it's a fit and sometimes it's not. And I'm okay with that. I want people to find therapists that work with them. That's what's important to me, not just that I become your therapist. I'm not the end-all be-all therapist. So what about, so what kind of treatments do you use, right? Is it CBT? Is it interpersonal, etc.? What else is it? And your treatment, has it been found to be effective for my kinds of problems or issues, right? So people ask me that. So, I mean, can you even help me? Can I get over this? And I'll talk to folks, about, my interpersonal object relations approach and how it has been effective in working with folks along the borderline or narcissistic spectrum, and working with that or the histrionic personality disorder spectrum, and working on those things and trauma and other types of experiences. And I think it's a great way to start a therapeutic relationship, is for that they're asserting themselves, saying, my time is valuable. I want to, protect my mental health. I want to make sure that you understand what I'm going through. So I think those are good questions. Also, if they take insurance, okay, that's important. I used to do that a long time ago in my practice. To take insurance, ask about fees and payments, and what about missed appointments? I know for individuals that have personality disorders, I know sometimes that they tend to miss more appointments than those who don't. Okay, so a lot of times in my treatment, we actually discuss that, and we build a plan in treatment about missing appointments, or what those rules are, or those conditions, or whatever it may be. So we talk about that. Now, there are some things. So let's say, right, that you found a therapist, and you're like, well, is this a good fit for me or not? So here's some questions for you to ask yourself. Okay, so did you feel comfortable enough to open up to that individual? Okay. And a lot of times folks with borderline personality disorder or other personality disorders, that a lot of times if there's a disconnect, they're quick to blame themselves for that disconnect. And that doesn't mean that it's you. Maybe it's just that connection. And then you can go and talk to somebody else. Now, if you talk to like 7 or 8 people and then you don't connect to any of them, that could be, then I think it's okay to say, okay, well, is it something about me? What is it? And explore that issue, absolutely. But I think that, to ask yourself, is this somebody I feel comfortable with? I think that's really important. Do you feel like he or she was listening to you? I've heard all sorts of stories about therapists eating lunch in front of a client, about, that they're answering their emails or texts or anything like that. I mean, were they paying? So these are really important things to ask yourself. Was this person focused on you? Okay. You can also ask yourself, what do you want out of going to therapy? And so this is a question I often ask a lot of my clients, right? When we first get started, paint as clear a picture as you can. Doesn't have to be absolutely clear, but paint as picture clear as you can of what you want. What are your expectations of therapy? Okay? And sometimes folks will be like, well, I want you to give me the advice that I need to change my life. Well, I usually correct that and I say, well, I don't give advice. I give suggestions. And what that is, advice means that I'm going to take the responsibility for your choices. And I don't do that. I empower my clients with choice. I encourage them to make healthy choices for themselves, but I can't make those choices for them. And that's an important discussion to have, to clear that up, because I think advice takes away your power. I think therapy is an empowering experience, and I want to empower my clients to make their choices and go forward, okay? And then what if you have there any red or pink flags, right? So red flags are those big obvious things that you're like, oh, that was something that was peculiar. A pink flag is something that you're kind of like, oh, that was strange. I don't know. It kind of, felt a little funny. You weren't sure about it. So how many of those were there? How did you feel exploring that that experience for yourself? Does this something feel like a good relationship going forward? Okay. And then, so how will you know if therapy's working? Well, as you begin therapy, right? So you need to establish your goals, right? With that mental health provider. You're going to establish what you want out of it. You're going to paint your picture of what you want out of it, right? And then certain goals require more time to reach than others, okay? To understand that. And that you and your mental health provider, that you're going to decide at what point you may expect to see progress, right? So for me, when my clients say, well, when do I expect to feel better? I can't put a timeline on that. I don't know. So that it's going to take time. But what we can do is that we can start identifying markers that when you start to feel better, and there's different ratings and scales and folks, that you can use to sort of get an idea as to your progression. I do that a lot. I use a lot of worksheets with my clients so that we can measure progress, because with a lot of my folks, because of the borderline personality disorder issues and overcoming, it's a lot of waxing and waning, right? It's a lot of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but it's not 3 steps back. And that's what's important. That's what we focus on, okay? And then also, so you want to discuss the process of therapy, right? What it is like for you with that person, how you feel going through this process. A lot of my clients, because we tend to get to a lot of core content, and that there's a lot of defense mechanisms that are in place, that it brings up a lot of issues and a lot of defense mechanisms and a lot of issues for us to manage in session. So it's important, that we have an agreement that however you're feeling about me, that we talk about it. And we do, and sometimes it's not favorable, and I'm okay with that, because it's important that you get it out, right? It's important that we discuss that, and it's important for my clients to realize that if you tell me that you're upset at me, that it doesn't mean that I'm not going to see you anymore, okay? That I'm not going to be your therapist or anything like that. Now, as you go through the process of therapy, what will happen is that people often feel a wide variety of emotions and experiences and things like that. And sometimes what happens is that you experience an increase in dissonance, okay? And this is not a bad thing, okay? Like I talk to a lot of my folks. What brought you here? What was dissonant in your life that your valuable time is spent with me? What is going on, and how can we lessen that? Let's work together. Let's identify ways that you can take control of that you can master that experience with empowerment and strength and encouragement to have that ability to lessen that dissonance. But it's important to realize that dissonance creates growth. In your comfort zone, we don't grow, right? Because we're comfortable. We're kind of chilling, we're kind of hanging out, okay? But when we experience something that's uncomfortable, dissonance, that's when growth kicks in, because we start to explore other options, right? Is that you start to see, well, how can I do this better? What can I do differently? And there's different degrees of dissonance in what you experience. And so that's going to happen in treatment as well. You don't, I try to empower my clients before, at the end of the session, so that they feel good and they feel empowered coming out. And I think that that's important as well, that we lessen some of that dissonance and experience. So it shouldn't all be negative. It shouldn't all be crying and tears and hate and rage and all these other things. There's a wide variety of different emotions that go on. So when therapy's working, that dissonance will lessen. You'll feel more confident. You'll have greater degrees of empowerment. And whatever that issue is that you'll have a greater sense of control. And we don't know what that issue is, because you have to talk about it with your mental health provider and explore it and feel comfortable enough to explore what it really is and what's really affecting you. And then, so does therapy work, right? So people are like, well, does therapy really even work? Come on. And the reality is that yes, it actually does. There's a lot of research that actually supports the efficacy of psychotherapy. And so for borderline personality disorder, there is a type of treatment called dialectical behavioral therapy that is really great. And also psychodynamic approaches have also been found to be efficacious for borderline personality disorder and personality disorders as well. So there are treatments out there that are effective. Whatever issue you feel like you're dealing with, you can always look up different types of treatment. Now with the internet, we can look up all kinds of stuff, and you can get all this great information so that you can become a good consumer for your mental health, so that you can find somebody that can help you. And therapy is a powerful and wonderful experience, and it's great when you find a therapist who you can connect with, and you can go forward and you can challenge these things, and you grow and you do your life differently. and it's an incredible experience, and I'm continually honored by my clients who open up and we explore their lives and they grow and develop, and it's the most amazing thing. It really is. So I appreciate your time. I really hope that you found this helpful. If there are some things maybe that you've used to find a good therapist that I didn't mention, please include them in the comments. Other people may look them up, and it may be really helpful for them too. And that's really important, that this is a positive resource for folks. So thank you very much. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out some of my others and subscribe if you're interested. And great. And thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thanks. Bye-bye.